Our opinion is that the demigods should not be neglected. Therefore, uproot them completely. Engage us in fighting with them, for we are ready to follow you. These are the demons speaking to Kamsa. Srila Prabhupada's purport is Divine Grace. According to moral instructions, one should not neglect to extinguish fire completely, treat diseases completely, and clear debts completely. Otherwise, they will increase and later be difficult to stop. Therefore, the ministers advised Kamsa to uproot his enemies completely.
What?
We can't hear you.
Let's ask Vasudev Prabhu what to.
Your phone is breaking up. Your phone is
connection is very unstable.
very bad.
Nanda
Yeah.
Bihar Prabhu, if you take off your video, then your sound might be better.
What's that? I couldn't hear you.
She says if you take off your video, the sound might be better because we can't hear you.
Yeah. Let's ask Vasudev Prabhu what to do. Maybe you can.
We can't hear you at all now. We can't hear anything, Ananda Bihari. We can't hear anything.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
And
Would you like to give
have
class?
this discussion. I can't give class. I can't. Maybe Krishna Daya Das can give class. Krishna Daya Das Prabhu, would you like to give class? Krishna Daya Das, Hare Krishna.
Hare Bol Prabhu, Hare Krishna. Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, let's have a discussion.
Yeah, sure. Maybe how will it go? Yeah. So just let me pull up that verse again, please. Yeah, just a minute.
Do you want me to share the screen, Krishna Daya Prabhu, or do you want to just pull it up yourself? Because
Yeah, I'm just one.
Okay.
So, yeah. Hare Krishna, Prabhus and Hare Krishna devotees. So, at the request of Anand Bihari Prabhu, and then with the permission of Adipurush Prabhu and blessings of all the devotees, so we can discuss this verse. So we are discussing the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So the chapter title is like Atrocities of King Kamsa. And then today's verse is 37. So in the last couple of weeks, so we saw this topic where Kamsa was trying to harm Devaki's, the latest born child. Is supposed to be a male child, but it turned out to be a female child. And the female child is none other than his own worshipable goddess Durga. And then till that time, Kamsa was so much proud and then in a vengeful mood. But once he saw a goddess Durga, that female child, she rose up into the sky when Kamsa was about to kill the child, she rose up into the sky and she boldly declared that, see, already the person who is supposed to kill you is born somewhere else. And then for sure, he will kill you. So we saw that there was a change in the mentality of Kamsa momentarily, and then he started begging forgiveness from Devaki. It was just momentary, and he started explaining the philosophy also. And then after that, so we see today's verse. So he let go Devaki and Vasudeva. But again, we see here his associates, whoever are there, so they are like in the bad association. So this is today's verse. So what they are trying to provoke Kamsa or orient Kamsa in a negative way again. So nonetheless, because of their enmity, our opinion is that the demigods should not be neglected. Therefore, to uproot them completely, engage us in fighting with them. So we are ready to follow you. The purport is small. According to moral instructions, we should not neglect to extinguish fire completely, treat diseases completely, and clear debts completely. So this is something which is very much instructive. Anything unwanted should be removed from the root itself. It's not that we just address it to some particular extent, but we have to remove it from the root itself. If you can meditate, one of the famous verses from Nectar of Instruction, or no. So there is one famous verse that if we practice devotional service, something will be removed from the root. Anybody can tell about that? Since this is a discussion, please forgive me. It's not a class. Anand Bihari Prabhu instructed. So anybody would like to tell that particular analogy?
It's pretty clear. If you let fire go, it will spread.
Yeah.
And Scripture Guru is advising us, take care of these things. Debt, disease, fire, they shouldn't be neglected because they are a threat to the safety. So Krishna is warning us also.
Yeah.
So we don't become complacent. How wonderful is Krishna that he's warning us. Don't be lazy. Don't be complacent. Try to take care of the problem at hand.
Yeah. Yes,
I think maybe that example is when you working in the garden and there's weeds, and if you just cut them without dealing with the root, they will grow back again. Is that the analogy, Krishna Das Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu. Yeah, exactly. Thank
Did
you,
I score?
Krishna Prabhu, for the thing. So we should not be complacent. And then taking back to the garden analogy, Anand Bihari Prabhu. Yeah. So when especially Anand Bihari Prabhu pointed out a very nice point, that is like the weeds. When we are trying to address the weeds, so we have to remove it from the root. Like if we cut superficially, again in the garden, it will grow. Similarly, in the process of this spiritual path, whatever the sadhana or we are trying to improve, so there are weeds. Weeds means something unwanted, like something which is detrimental to our spiritual practices. So whenever those things we observe, so we try to work on them. But the idea is that we have to remove it from the root, or else it will be detrimental in the long run. So it is said, Kintu adarat anudinam khalu saiva jushtam swadvi kramat bhavati tadgata moola hantri. So what it is I'm sure it is from Nectar of Instruction. There is a Saint Rupa Goswami. So he says that like these unwanted things or unfavorable things for devotional service or the spiritual path, how they get removed. So we have like various paths of spirituality. One is the path of yoga, and then one is the path of like impersonalism. But in the path of the devotional service, what we are practicing, the bhakti yoga, is like we chant the holy names of the Lord, which is very exclusive, like in a mood of service. And what will happen because of that, like Anudinam, Anand Vihari Prabhu pointed out a very nice, he said a very nice statement in the beginning, which is worth meditating. He said, consistency is something which we cannot fake. In the beginning of the class, he said, so it's such a nice point. What he was telling is consistently, practice devotional service or a spiritual path. So that's what Rupa Goswami also says. Kintu adarat anudinam means every day. Adarat means with love and affection. Like we are attending the Srimad Bhagavatam. So it's not somebody is not forcing us, or Prabhu, you come, we will give you some prasadam or something. Or nobody is bribing us. We ourselves are voluntarily coming and then trying to engage in this spiritual activity. So kintu adarat anudinam, every day, khalu saiva jushtam. So so if you practice this spiritual path or this discussions or chanting of the holy names, what will happen? Rupa Goswami is telling is Swadvi kramat, gradually, bhavati tadgata moola hantri, means it will be removed, destroyed from the root itself. So Andrea Prabhu is telling that this makes me think of the analogy regarding protecting our bhakti bija, our seed of bhakti, so that it can be grown safely. Same thing, bhakti bija, and then we nourish it with the process of hearing and chanting. So the bija will turn into gradually creeper or lata. How about every minute? That is great. Nityam, that's what. So Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. So this devotional service should be done, every minute. And then Prabhu, Adipurusha Prabhu so nicely pointed out. So this is to avoid complacency. So like because so one thing is, I was hearing Gauranga Prabhu, what we need to do. A person who is swimming upstream, what he needs to do. He needs to swim in a particular motion, and every minute or every instant, so he needs to repeat the same activity. It's not that he needs to be very creative or something, but the thing is, the repetition or the consistency, it should be there. So then he will be able to progress upstream. It's not that every minute he needs to change his angles or his way of swimming. So that is what is very important. So every minute we should be conscious and then try to endeavor go upstream, like what spiritual path we are practicing. So this is also like going upstream. Every time we will be getting bombardments that so you which will discourage or make us lethargic. But as Adipurusha Prabhu was telling, so we should get up from that complacency. And please, anybody would like to share how we can overcome that complacency in our spiritual path? And Riya Prabhu, Will Prabhu, Adipurusha Prabhu, so many are there. Any suggestions how we can overcome the complacency?
Making a very important point about the consistency, persevering, and not neglecting to continue the endeavor. And interesting also, another component is not only consistent, but thoroughness. Like Ananda Bihari was saying, go to the root, So Maya is very dynamic. We're in the process of cleansing and purification. And Maya gets more and more subtle. Just like they say, a wolf is dangerous, but a wolf in sheep's clothing is even more dangerous. Sometimes Maya is disguised as devotional service, right? One of the things we were reading last night, we're hearing from Sheikh Babu about the first offense in the chanting of the holy name is to blaspheme the devotees who have dedicated their life to the propagation of the holy name of the Lord. So sometimes we might think, I'm a better devotee than that one, and I know better, and he doesn't know, and I should tell him. And then by unnecessarily criticizing the devotees, we're thinking we're preaching, but actually it's just pride and offensiveness. Think of Radhanath Swami. There is no one more humble. He doesn't think himself better than anyone, right? Isn't it? He actually, personifies that virtue, humbler than a blade of grass, more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, offering all respects to others, expecting none in return. And this way, we can chant the holy name of the Lord. So Maya, disguised as Krishna consciousness, even disguised as preaching, as soon as we think we're better than anyone else, even the gopis, they became a little proud. Krishna left them just like that. Andrea wants to say something. Andrea?
What if I think that I'm the worst? Isn't that just the other side of false ego? Haripusha Prabhu, Krishna Daya Das, or anybody?
Well, Prabhupada said, somebody said to Prabhupada, I'm the most fallen. Prabhupada said, you're not the most anything. And part of humility is to understand our lowly position, but part of humility is to glorify Krishna. And if we have the class, or we say, I'm so little, but Krishna is so wonderful. How wonderful is Krishna? That even as insignificant as I am, Krishna is capable, willing, and lovingly reaching out to help us. So we're glorifying Krishna is an important part of humility. Not just, I'm so small, I'm so little, I'm so unqualified. Sure, okay, good. But Krishna is so wonderful that even without my being very advanced, he's kindly helping us.
Yeah.
So we have to be very thorough in our application of Krishna consciousness as well as consistent. Andrea's trying to say something. Oh, Bhakti, you go.
It's not me, it's Angelica has her hand up.
Angelica Prabhu, you want to?
Yes, Hare Krishna. I'll also read the comments first because they're so beautiful. So Jamuna Jaya says, Dhanurtar Swami says, commitment changes consciousness. So when we commit, make vows, it propels us to do our practices and stay on track. And then Bhakta Hugo says, Chaitanya Charan Prabhu says, selflessness does not mean thinking less of yourself. It means thinking of yourself less. That actually also is what Radha Maharaj shares, who is the spiritual master of Chaitanya Charan Prabhu. I wanted to add, first thing is somehow the pastime of Srila Prabhupada came to me that Bhakti Charu Swami shared in one of his lessons. And it was that one of Prabhupada's disciples was lamenting and just sharing like, oh my gosh, Prabhupada, my life before I met you was so sinful. I'm so fallen. And he was just lamenting this way. And Prabhupada said, oh, that was just externals, because when I called, you came. And so to some extent, we are also part of the dance. But another part of that too is exactly that, which is we may be very fallen, and we are truly very fallen, but we can choose to be empowered, and to claim that we cannot be empowered is actually disempowering the will and the potency of the Lord himself. So we can also glorify the Lord by allowing ourselves to be empowered, and then just giving him the grace when it's visible. And also about humility, in one of the recent lectures by Radhanath Swami, he was sharing how it's always safest to take the humbler position and to see ourselves as more in danger than we may be believing we are. And so this way we really truly are protecting ourselves on our devotional service, because this way we can always stay ready for calamities and ready for our mind to fickle and work in ways that can take us away from thinking of the Lord and serving the devotees. And so in this way, we always stay on guard, ready to protect ourselves. And then there was this point, I don't know exactly what point that came to me, but I was thinking about enthusiasm and how one way also of securing ourselves is actually not to expect being enthusiastic and just to be patiently working and practicing regulated sadhana bhakti, and then enthusiasm eventually can manifest itself as it does spontaneously, but we don't depend on it. And that's not the position that we are in. We don't need to depend on enthusiasm or just sunny day to be happy, but actually just do our services and regularly attempt to connect with the Lord and his devotees. And then maybe we'll be blessed with actually experiencing spontaneous enthusiasm and joy. But until that comes, we are still satisfied in doing what we are doing. So these are my small points. Thank you so much for allowing me to share.
Thank you so much, Angelica Prabhu. So nicely you brought up that point of enthusiasm, and till that time we need to do our sadhana bhakti so nicely. I can recollect like Srila Prabhupada quote, if you are not feeling enthusiastic, if you are not having that enthusiasm, at least act enthusiastically, so that so we can get that inspiration.
Krishna Das Prabhu, are you just acting now, or you're feeling enthusiastic?
You kept me in a catch-22 position, but at least always I'm to good extent, good percentage I'm acting, and sometimes seeing you I get a lot of enthusiasm.
Okay, it's good to know. Very inspiring. Bhakti Yuga, tell us what you got.
Hare Krishna. Something I was thinking of that came up with Angelica Prabhu's point about enthusiasm. I was recently working with Mahatma Prabhu on one of his classes about japa, and he was speaking about how sometimes when we're chanting japa, we'll have this idea like, why am I not happy while chanting japa? Why isn't this sweet? All the acharyas say it's an ocean of nectar. Why am I not feeling anything? And he was saying that to some extent, in some applications, that can be good. This idea that, if I'm not feeling anything, then there's something wrong with how I'm serving, something wrong with how I'm approaching bhakti, and there's something I need to work on. So in that case, it can be good. But at the same time, he was saying that it can be taken too far, and we can be, we're not supposed to chant for our pleasure or do bhakti for our pleasure. We're trying to do bhakti for Krishna's pleasure. And he said that he recently facilitated a japa retreat, and there was there was a devotee who said, I chant to be happy, and Mahatma Prabhu gave her the advice, well, this week don't try to be happy, just chant for Krishna's pleasure. And then he was saying in the class, and I think that devotee, this will be the happiest week of her life because she's not trying to be happy. So I thought that was kind of nice, that if we put ourselves out of the center, the less we try and make ourselves happy or enthusiastic, and the more we put Krishna at the center, the more we end up being happy and enthusiastic. It's a counterintuitive, but it's very powerful. And then back to that original point of complacency, something I was thinking about is also how valuable it is to remember just how special our process is. Because once we're around devotees for a while and we've been, chanting so many rounds for so many days or months or years, we've been engaging in service, eating prasadam, doing kirtan. Sometimes we can get used to it. Like, yeah, this is just normal life. What else would I be doing? But then we can forget just how special it is. And so I think, right. And actually, Mahatma Prabhu, in a class on Nityananda Triyodashi, he said something very nice. He said, do you want to understand the mercy of Nityananda Prabhu? If you want to understand his mercy, just stop chanting for a week and see where you end up. And then you'll understand Nityananda Prabhu's mercy. And I go, wow, that's powerful. But yeah, and sometimes it comes in our workplace. I know for me, I hold a full-time job and I just see what passes for happiness in normal people's lives. And I'm like, no, I don't want that. This is what I want with the devotees, with Krishna. And also with preaching, we get that opportunity. when we get to share Krishna consciousness with someone who's never experienced it before, and we get to see how they grow, how they explore it, and how they're fascinated by it, and how they're curious about it, and they want to learn it all and experience it all. And we can remember, oh yeah, that was me in those first days. I need to keep up that enthusiasm, because this is such a special thing. It's not ordinary. And our mind will kind of get in the habit of saying, oh, I've been doing this for a while. It's just what I do. But no, this is, I mean, the amount of mercy we have by getting to engage in Krishna consciousness is just profound. And so I think interacting with people who aren't within Krishna consciousness, and also reflecting on our own journey, how we came into it, what we were before, what we would be now without Krishna consciousness, I think that's a powerful way of dealing with the complacency that can naturally seep in through Maya's influence. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Bhakta Yoga Prabhu. So it was such a nice point. Of course, a lot of valuable points, but one point you brought up is like, Mahatma Prabhu was saying, like, when we are chanting, it's not that we chant for our happiness. So we chant for the Krishna's pleasure. So that is the very valuable point. Even spiritual, like, so there is one quotation like, "Dukkhaushadam tadapi dukkham." Like in this material world, Prahlad Maharaj says that if you want to be happy, just stop endeavoring for happiness. So that is the one thing. So if you endeavor for happiness, that also will result in misery. But a very nice analogy you did is like, even for spiritual things also. So the idea is like, we try to do the spiritual activities for Krishna's pleasure, not for our happiness. So if you do it for our happiness, maybe we may not get that much high result, but if we do for Krishna's happiness, eternally the happiness is guaranteed. So that is a very deep point you brought out, Prabhu, and so many nice analogies. Thank you. And
Lord Mark says that as soon as we endeavor for our own happiness, our distress begins. That our endeavor for our own personal happiness is the cause of my distress.
Oh, is that applicable with spiritual activities also? Like, suppose I try to cook prasadam, bhoga, offer lordships and serve devotees for my happiness. So now I'm feeling materially distressed, but I do some spiritual activity. So how will that be applicable to even spiritual activities also, Prabhu?
We please Krishna, we're automatically pleased. It's a byproduct. It's not the goal. It's certainly there. But our focus is, how can we please you, Lord? I love that point that Angelika made about the urgency, the need to be vigilant. Devananda Pandit says this thing that before you get up in the morning, Maya got up, took a shower, and chanted all her rounds, and then she's waiting for you. So we really have to be, she doesn't take a coffee break, she doesn't take a day off, so we really have to be consistent and really understand that I'm in a dangerous position, very precarious. At any moment, I could be swept away by my mind and senses.
Thank you, Prabhu. Before we go to Bhima Prabhu, so Andrea Prabhu has posted in the chat, by serving both the spiritual master and Krishna, he gets the seed of devotional service, Bhakti Lata Beach. And if he sows the seed within his heart and waters it by hearing and chanting the sadhana, it grows into the luxuriant Bhakti Lata or the Bhakti Creeper. Bhagavatam 4.22.23. Thank you, Prabhu, for posting that. Bhima Prabhu, would you like to share something? You raise your hand, Bhima Prabhu. Bhima Prabhu, you are on mute. Yeah.
Haribol, can you hear me?
Yes, Prabhu. Yeah, we can hear you.
Haribol. Hare Krishna. Wonderful class, wonderful discussion. But let us not forget that in reviving our constitutional position, or at least for myself, my understanding is through Prabhupada's words in Tattva, that we are Sat Chit Ananda, that by engaging in devotional service, by calling on Krishna's name, Ananda, we become, first of all, we regain our nowness, our sat. We come here and now. We realize the immediate position of our relationship with Krishna at all times. Chit means, of course, that we become aware of our constitutional position. We become aware of the material energy. We become aware of Krishna's presence in our life. And then Ananda, that's part of it. That's the triune of who we are constitutionally, or how we are constitutionally situated to be blissful. That Krishna, or we shouldn't be happy, or we shouldn't chant to be happy, and so, but it happens naturally, because that's naturally, supernaturally who we are. That Krishna wants us to be happy. What father, what lover, what friend would not want their child, their friend, or their lover to be happy? I mean, that's the happiness of Krishna, is to see the happiness of his devotees. So it happens automatically. We shouldn't try to be miserable, and it's not about gaining miserable. It's about being bold and about taking risks, and by doing it joyfully, like a pirate out on sea, to go and to grab these moments, to do these conquests for Krishna's sake, and to be happy doing it, to be jolly. Prabhupada said, and I'll end here, that the sign of a pure devotee, or the sign of a devotee, is he's always jolly. Not happy, but jolly, which means intoxicated. So I just wanted, when we're throwing all this, like we shouldn't be happy, and it's not about our happiness, and as soon as you endeavor to be happy, of course we don't endeavor to be happy, we endeavor to hang out with Krishna. And then when you do that, vis-a-vis through the devotees, or through the holy name, or through our service, because as Prabhupada said, Krishna is there in those things, then we understand his immediate presence, and then we become overjoyed, we become fulfilled. And we must not forget that, because then we think deep down inside that this is a miserable process full of austerities and denial, where it's actually a wonderful process full of fulfillment and gratification deep, deep, deep down inside. So wonderful. I love these type of discussions that everybody is chiming in with what they've heard from various sadhus throughout the movement. So Hare Krishna.
Yeah. Thank you, Bhima Prabhu. So nicely you pointed out that it's but natural, like when we are in devotional service, it's but natural to be happy, so we need not worry about it automatically. Thank you so much. Andrea Prabhu, you wanted to say something?
Yes, Hare Krishna, Krishna Daya Prabhu. First, I wrote it in the chat, but I wanted to say it out loud for everyone, that I wanted to thank you on behalf of everyone for taking on this austerity of kind of being our kind of facilitator for this discussion. I know how frightening it can be to all of a sudden be kind of put on the spot. And obviously Krishna decided through Ananda Vihari Prabhu to give you the special mercy. So I just wanted to thank you for saying yes and doing this for us. And then I just wanted to share, I actually, what we're talking about in terms of not endeavoring to be happy, but how it comes as a byproduct. I actually just read about that in a regular book, like a mundane book that I was reading. It's called The Search for Meaning, Man's Search for Meaning. It's a book that was written by Viktor Frankl. He was a survivor of the Holocaust from World War II. He was a Jewish doctor, and he wrote this beautiful book, which I can't believe. Yeah, thank you, Jamuna Jaya. I can't believe this is the first time that I'm reading it. And he talks about how the true purpose for humans to kind of really achieve happiness is through having a true meaning in their life. And I see that connection to what we're talking about, because when you have a true meaning, like you have a purpose, at which we see the purpose is that true purpose of the spiritual soul, right? The true purpose of the spiritual service to serve Krishna, serve his devotees, serve the other jivas. So if you have that meaning, he was saying, then happiness will just be a byproduct of it. And he said that if you have a purpose, no matter the circumstance, you will be able to kind of keep going. And he actually quoted Nietzsche at some point. And I don't know if anybody can help me. He said, if you have a why, you can overcome any how. You know, like that. If you have a reason, then you can overcome any obstacle. And this is coming from someone who lived through such an atrocity. You know, like he describes how he was taken away, like all his identity. He was just a number. He was just so, you know, abused by not only the guards of the Nazi guards, but also like sometimes fellow prisoners would just kind of turn on each other just for survival. And he said, if you just have that higher purpose, and he talks about love in that way. And I know that he's not talking about it in the way that we see it in terms of bhakti, in terms of love of Krishna, but that's how I saw it when I was reading the book, that he was talking about how the highest purpose is love, and Krishna is that love. So I really love that that our dear Bhima Prabhu kind of brought us back to that it's not about just austerities, and it's not about like us self-flagellating ourselves. It's about knowing that Krishna is love. Krishna is that bliss. And if we can connect to that, then we can feel that. And it's just a byproduct. We're not trying to do that. It's a byproduct of it. So, but I see that other people have their hands up. I'm so glad that everybody's enjoying the discussion.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you. Such a nice point you have brought out, like the purpose. Before Bhakta Vil Prabhu, Angelica Prabhu also I saw, but
yes, I just wonder if we have enough time to speak. But I just wanted to bring back the point about austerity, because on one side, it's like this world is full of suffering, and for us to expect happiness to come from it is just foolishness. We will just not find it anyway. But on the other side, also something that I've been speaking with my mentor in the past, which I find myself falling into, is like only expecting austerity, which also feels unnatural in devotional service. And then she brought this example to me, saying like, hey dear, but actually Arjuna was a fighter and he loved fighting. Like he would spend entire days practicing how to be an archer, and he would do it at night. He would do it when there was like no one around. He would just spend his entire days practicing how to be a good warrior. And in the same way, it's like we have austerities on the path of devotional service, and at the same time we also have Krishna given nature and talents, which we should engage, because that also comes for a reason to us and is gifted to be engaged back in his service. So I just wanted to bring that point, because I feel like sometimes we can just fall into only doing austerities, which also feel not so pleasant, and then it can even chip away at our desire to really continue on the spiritual path, because then it feels like this is only hardship and there is never a point of joy or engaging our nature.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu. Bhakta Vil Prabhu, you raise your hand, and Jamuna Jai Prabhu also is there. So, yeah.
Hare Krishna. I don't know if we have enough time, but I just wanted to say that my mind, I know with me, my mind is always, every time I'm thinking Krishna, I'm chanting, there's always something coming in there, always. And then to get to the root of my problem, I know back in the past, I used to think, well, I'll just blame my father. He had an anger problem, so I have an anger problem. So it's just my father's fault. And that's not good. It's not good, because that's not getting to the root of the problem. The root of the problem is deeper than that. And, I find myself, okay, how's my associations? In the last talk, the associations plays a critical point, I think, with what I'm thinking, how I'm thinking, even if it's reading a book or associating with non-devotees, how am I spending most of my time in Krishna's service? And I find myself really happy when I'm at food distribution with the devotees there, and that fills up my whole day, and I want that day to every single day.
is just a beautiful feeling. So that's all. I just wanted to share that. And
Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu. So nicely bringing out the point of association. This is what we in the purport also. Maybe we can conclude with Jamuna Jai Prabhu, or we need to.
All right, well, I'll just be quick. I'm just thinking as this discussion is going on, this discussion just reaffirms, I feel like, the perfection of this path. As everyone was saying, that happiness is a byproduct. Well, why are we happy? Because we're serving. Why are we serving? Because we love. How do we fall in love? Because we hear. And, Krishna says, my devotees delight like in speaking about me. And think how joyous we've all been this morning. Everybody's hopping on and Zoom. You hopped right up on Zoom in the chat box. And how joyous are we? Because we were speaking about our beloved. And then we were speaking about our beloved. We're hearing about our beloved. We get more joyous and that keeps us on track. So I was just thinking, how wonderful is Krishna? How wonderful is Prahlad, who, gives us that comment that chasing happiness is not the thing, but then gives us the devotional practices. And so to your first question about how do we stay on track, it's this, we stay on track because we instantly can see the results about how joyous, how engaged, and how clear our minds become on focusing on the goal, which is Krishna. So thank you so much. And congratulations, Krishna Daya Das. I understand yesterday was a very special day for some of you and well-deserved. So thank you, everybody. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Jamuna Jaya Prabhu. Such a nice point you have brought out. And then thanks for all the chat. And then, yeah.
Well, what was the day? I want to know. How can I celebrate, What happened yesterday?
I'm sorry. What was the day?
We want to know what Jamuna Jaya was referring to. If you feel comfortable. If not, we can talk about it after we turn off the live stream and the video recording.
Oh. It's a question to Jamuna Jaya Prabhu, maybe. So, yeah. Yeah. Thank you all. So, it's already 8:03 and then it's time to take a leave. So, we, Anand Bihari Prabhu, would you like to conclude? Are you there? Or we can. So, we thank all the participants, Andrea Prabhu, Angelica Prabhu, Angel Prabhu, and Bhaktavil Prabhu, Bhakta Yugo Prabhu, Bhakti Center host, Bhima Prabhu, Himangi Henry Prabhu, Jamuna Jai Prabhu, Jason Prabhu, Kartik Prabhu, Naomi Prabhu, Radhika Prabhu, Rameshwar Prabhu, Sharita Prabhu, Shri Prahlad Prabhu, Sundaranand Prabhu, Suzanne Prabhu, and Yogeshwari Prabhu. Thank you all for being so enthusiastically part of this discussion. And then thank you. And again, we'll meet tomorrow. Hari Bol. Hari